Great to have Ian Castleberry with us for our NFL Gold Nuggets feature, presented by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers. Ian Castleberry, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
Hey, we are very good. Thanks very much. Lots to get to today. And I guess first we can maybe start with this Aaron Rodgers guy. I don't know if you know this, but apparently he's not happy with the Packers. All right, so let's get it. The Rodgers latest. Do you take A-Rod seriously, though, Ian, when he says it's either me or the general manager?
I do take him seriously because, look, Aaron Rodgers, he was at the Kentucky Derby last week. He had an opportunity to shut all of this down, and he preferred not to talk to the press. He could have just made all of this go away, and he didn't. So I think whether it's him wanting the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, fired, or he just wants attention and wants the Packers to give him a new contract or more guaranteed money is the report, versus the Packers offering a contract extension. I mean, who wouldn't want more money up front, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if this hadn't gone public, maybe things would have moved along a little more. We'll talk a little bit about, where he could go next. But I kind of feel like the Packers missed their window before the draft last Thursday.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ian. Get more into that if you don't mind.
Well, if the 49ers were one of the teams, for instance, that wanted Aaron Rodgers, would that have included the number 3 pick? Probably not, but Aaron Rodgers, you could imagine. If this is a team that could go to the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers is that guy. But he could also hold that position for 1 to 2 seasons while Trey Lance develops as well. I don't know if the 49ers had the draft capital. You have to figure the Packers are going to get, or at least are seeking, at least 2 first-round picks in return. Rodgers is under contract for 3 more seasons. So, and the Broncos are another team I know that have been attached to Rodgers in trade rumors, and that was another situation. Would the Broncos have traded number 9? Would they be interested in trading 2 first-round picks in the future? I mean, you have to think, yeah, of course you would rather have Aaron Rodgers than Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. But past those 2 teams, I wonder if there really was the opportunity, or really is the opportunity now that the draft is over, for the Packers to find a willing trade partner that can make a move and give the Packers what they would be looking for in return if indeed they wanted to trade Aaron Rodgers.
And Mike, I'm not really seeing, outside of Denver, maybe Oakland, or I'm sorry, Las Vegas. I'm not really seeing many opportunities for Aaron. As great as Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, I still don't see many opportunities for him.
I would concur with that. To me, Denver seems like the only legitimate landing spot. I guess you can say the Raiders, but they've got they've got Carr there, and I guess you could just move him out. That'd be tough, but
I get the sense Gruden has never really been 100% sold on David Carr.
Right? Yeah,
it's the only reason I mentioned that.
Yeah. But everything points to Denver. If anything's going to happen, it would seem like Denver would be the logical landing spot for him if that happens.
All right, we'll see how it plays out for sure. A little drama here coming up into the summer months up in Green Bay, as we're joined by Ian Castleberry for our NFL Gold Nuggets feature presented by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers. And Ian, of course, it's the time of year where players come, NFL draft, and players go. 5th-year options not being picked up. So, Ian, speaking of the latter, which named players saw their options declined by their teams?
Sony Michel, the running back for the New England Patriots, is one name I think that really stands out on the list of players whose options weren't picked up. I think the Patriots think they can get better production, maybe more all-around play from Damian Harris. James White is a dependable receiver out of the backfield. One name that I thought was interesting, he wasn't among the 5th-year options that were not picked up this week, but Mitchell Trubisky is a player whose 5th-year option wasn't picked up, and he ended up going to Mike's Bills as a backup quarterback. And the more I think about it, at first I thought Trubisky, that was a terrible decision because he isn't going to play. But I also wonder if Trubisky and his people are maybe taking the long view of this. No, Trubisky might not play in Buffalo with Josh Allen there, but he'll work under Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator. Maybe Brian Daboll gets a job somewhere else, and maybe it's to a place that needs a new quarterback. Hey, Mitchell Trubisky's played under Brian Daboll for a season and could take over as a quarterback wherever Daboll becomes a head coach.
And that's an interesting concept there, Mike, because we don't expect Trubisky to be really seeing but anything but limited playing time unless something, a big injury happens to Josh Allen. I like the way Ian's framing Mitch's people. I think they have to think long-term as well. It's a good call.
Yeah, I think the Bills, I think they just really felt like they have said publicly that they don't expect Mitch to be there for a long time, but I think they really felt like they've got a great chance to go for their AFC East title and make a run toward the Super Bowl with the talent they have. And Josh Allen, he likes to run, he likes to scramble, and every year, he's got an injury or something, and if that happens, you don't want to Matt Barkley's a fine backup, but that's what he is, a backup, and you can't do the things you do with Josh Allen. Where with Mitch Trubisky, you can do a lot of the things you can do what Josh Allen did. So I think they feel like they don't want to miss this is a chance for them to keep things going, even if they have a big injury to Josh Allen.
And even so, I think Trubisky and his people, and he seems to have some smart ones around him. A lot of times, players and their agents are just going for the money, and I think they both realize. He's not a starting quarterback right now in the NFL. He had his shot. It didn't work out. Let's try and reset and regroup. Trubisky seems to be on board with that. The fact that they're on the same page will help Mitch Trubisky, and I think being in that Buffalo system will as well. Whether he decides to leave Buffalo or maybe stick there, for the time being. Obviously, he wants to go start somewhere, but that's still a long shot in my book, no matter who he's going to be learning under this coming season, as good as Brian Dable is. Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines and our NFL Gold Nuggets feature presented by DC and his staff at 269 Tono Road, your one-stop jewelry shop. By the way, Ian, your Lions waive running back Kerryon Johnson. And speaking of offseason moves, your Lions have been active, Ian. What do you make of Detroit's moves through trades, free agent signings, in the draft thus far?
Well, I was really surprised they cut Kerryon Johnson. He's only 23 years old. He didn't have a great season. He is the team's best pass blocker, but I think between DeAndre Swift kind of emerging as a three-down back, both running the ball and being able to catch the ball, they signed Jamal Williams in free agency. They picked up a couple of running backs in the draft and free agency after the draft. So he's expendable. But I like what the Lions have done. I mean, as you guys know, in the weeks leading up to the draft, I was really hoping the Lions would get Penei Sewell. They did get him an offensive tackle that can be there, for 10, maybe 12 years. They shored up a defensive tackle, including Aleem McNeil from North Carolina State. I was hoping the Lions would really address linebacker in the draft, and they didn't quite do that. There were a couple of guys like Nick Bolton from Missouri, Jabril Cox from LSU, who I was really hoping the Lions would get. But I think General Manager Brad Holmes really, he's doing what we all say general managers should do in building a football team, but it's not glamorous. Like, you build from the lines out. You build the offensive line, you build the defensive line, and then you go from there. That's what Brad Holmes seems to be doing, although it's not as exciting as a football fan. You want like a wide receiver. You want somebody who's going to get after the quarterback.
Ian Castleberry playing with the Wise Guys. We got a lot going on with our NFL Gold Nuggets feature. Matter of fact, we'll get Mike's Bills takeover question coming up, draft related, in just a moment. And Ian, last time we had you talking NFL was ahead of the NFL draft. So now let's look back with you. And which teams won the draft?
I really like the Miami Dolphins did. I think they wanted Kyle Pitts, but he wasn't available once the 49ers took Trey Lance, and the Falcons ended up taking Kyle Pitts. But they still got Jalen Waddle out of Alabama, getting that connection with Tua Tagovailoa, giving him a playmaker. They addressed their defense, getting help along the defensive line. I really like the tight end that they picked up out of Boston College as well. I think you have to look at the New York Jets. They got a quarterback. I mean, do we know if Zach Wilson's going to have success in the NFL? That remains to be seen, but they also shored up an offensive line, adding a guard I forget his name, a guard from USC, putting him alongside Mekhi Becton. The Jets, it seems like they're learning from the mistakes they made with Sam Darnold and not giving him enough protection coming out. I think the Cowboys, they kind of had the draft I was hoping the Lions would have in a way. They got some great linebackers. They got Micah Parsons. They did get Jabril Cox out of LSU. And I really like what the Chicago Bears did. You know, they made the splashiest move of the draft, moving up to get Justin Fields, kind of, you know, a reset, making up for what they weren't able to do with Mitch Trubisky. They saw an opportunity once the Lions and the Panthers and the Broncos passed on Justin Fields, and they made their move. I think that's a trade that could, you know, really light up the Bears. That's a Super Bowl defense, and quarterback has held them back. Maybe it's a year or two away, but I really like what the Bears did.
Yeah, let's hope they develop Fields better than they did Mitch Trubisky. And, of course, you got to think Andy Dalton's going to stay. Nick Foles is going to go. And if they get no takers from Nick Foles, that's going to be an expensive goodbye for the Bears for sure coming up. All right, Ian, so which team stumbled in the draft?
Well, you know, one thing that was interesting about this draft to me is that there weren't too many picks where you just, like, put your hands in your hair, like, what are they doing? You know, what are they thinking? Although I think maybe the closest is the Cincinnati Bengals taking Jamar Chase at number 5. As a Lions fan, I am grateful for that. Passing on Penei Sewell, the Lions were able to take Sewell. But, you know, as we talked about last week, taking an offensive tackle to protect Joe Burrow versus giving him a playmaker, you know, maybe it'll end up being the smart move, but if you can't protect the quarterback, it's not going to matter what playmakers you have on the field. I'm not sure I like what the Denver Broncos did in taking a cornerback with their first-round pick at number 9. That was curious. I wonder if they're going to regret not drafting Justin Fields with that number 9 pick. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, I like taking Najee Harris. I think he's an excellent running back, but I do wonder if they could have addressed other needs on their team and maybe going all in for a running back. What was the best move for a team that looks to be on the decline in Ben Roethlisberger's final season?
I mean, Big Ben certainly needs some running help with James Conner gone. I can certainly understand the Steelers going that route. That pick was a home run. I think Mike Gore would happen to Pittsburgh is the rest of the draft wasn't really as strong for them, and kind of putting them in the lower half of teams in terms of draft grades.
And all of this is just stuff to talk about because
the real results come in 2 to 3 years.
Exactly. So it's fun to talk about right now. You know, I think we'll talk about the Bills in a minute or two. You know, they got like a C with a lot of people, and you know, I would have liked to have maybe of them gotten a running back, and but I'm just talk with Neil Sharp. I'm going to trust Brandon Beane.
Hold on this because we're coming up with your people next. A quick preview there with Mike Gore, Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys. It is our NFL Gold Nuggets feature presented by D.C. Creasman Jewelers. And here we go.
The Bills make me wanna shout, kick your heels up and shout, throw your hands up and shout, throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the Bills.
It's not quite Otis Redding, but we'll take it for sure.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's music to Mike's ears. All right, Ian Castleberry, Mike Gore's Bills takeover question. How did you like the Bills draft?
I really like the Bills draft in terms of addressing their defense and shoring up their offensive line. I'm very curious about Spencer Brown, the offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, how that'll end up working out. I do wonder, Mike mentioned the Bills needing a running back, and I wonder how much their plans were derailed by the Jaguars taking Travis Etienne, which was a really surprising pick, I think, at number 25. The Jaguars already had James Robinson. I mean, Travis Etienne is a much different running back. He can catch the ball. I'm sure they'll use him in the slot more as a receiver. You know, you could almost see Etienne and Robinson in the same backfield at the same time. But I think that from all accounts, that's somebody the Bills really had their eyes on, and for him to be taken a few picks ahead of them, I think had to be disappointing, although they certainly did address edge rusher, which was a need for them. Gregory Rousseau, arguably one of the best available in the draft. So I think the Bills were also fortunate he was there at number 30.
Yeah. Mike, overall, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think, the Bills last year, certainly we talked about the running game not as well as it would have liked to have gone, but they still went 13-3 with it. And I think they felt like they needed to shore up their defense, and they did. And I think they felt like they got a steal in the second round, and Carlos Basham Jr. I think he's another defensive end. I think they wanted some other some other needs. But I think Brandon Beane just really likes to draft the best player available, and I think they were stunned that Basham. I think he's called Boogie Basham. I think they were surprised he's available, and they said, well, he's too good of a talent not to take. So it's good. So I think they've really addressed a lot of things defensively, and with the great competition you've got to beat the Chiefs, to get to the Super Bowl, and you've got those talented young quarterbacks in the AFC East. You've got to be able to stop them. You got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. Kenny Ford puts it best. It's no matter who you are, it's awful hard to throw a spiral when you got a helmet in your chest. So I mean, that's in high school, college, and in the NFL too. You got to have a pass rush. You got to rush the quarterback. I think the Bills, and some of their defensive lines getting a little long in the tooth. Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes are in their 30s, still effective players, but you got to look down the road, and this is. And I think the Bills have done that. And Brandon Beane, their general manager, who's a North Carolina native, as we all well know, and he's earned my trust. He's as far as a Bills fan, we just. And seeing some of the stories up there, and he's done a good job with the draft so far, with the people he's gotten. People thought he was crazy for taking Josh Allen. It's worked out okay.
Indeed, it has. No doubt. Breakout year for Josh this past season. And Ian Castleberry, of course, writes for awfulannouncing.com, also of course, thecomeback.com. Check out both, like both on Facebook. And we always appreciate Ian's knowledge, of course, with our NFL Gold Nuggets feature. And Ian, we got just 30 seconds. Albert Pujols looks like he's going to be released by the Angels. He's going to go down as one of the all-time great players. Do you see him trying to catch on with another team, or just calling it a historical career?
I think he's going to call it a career. I think you might see something like Albert Pujols signs a one-day contract with the Cardinals so he can retire a Cardinal. But it's really amazing that he was a Hall of Fame hitter with the Cardinals, and then once he signed with the Angels, still a good player, but really just a guy. One of my friends was telling me that, a generation of baseball fans might not realize just how good Albert Pujols was, because for the past 10 years or so, he hasn't been that impactful with the Angels, which is really sad, because I think if he'd stayed with the Cardinals, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I mean, it wouldn't have even been a question. Now it's just kind of a shrug, like, oh yeah, Albert Pujols, yeah, you probably should hang it up.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Why do this to yourself?
Yeah, it really is shocking how two franchises, one, the Cardinals kept on going after losing Pujols, and the Angels, who again had a good franchise, and how it screwed them up. And they've only one postseason appearance. They won the division in 2014, and basically Oakland and Houston surpassed the Angels, and so so anyway, it's sad that as you talk about, Ian, is that people thinking, there's a generation of people who don't realize how good he is, just some guy making a lot of money for the Angels.
Yeah, one of the greats.
So real quick, COVID probably cost Albert Pujols 700 home runs too, which is a shame.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that sucks. That is a shame. Yeah, that's a really good point. As always, he always has them. Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. Ian, we sure appreciate you, buddy. As always, have a great rest of the week. Thanks so much.
All right. Appreciate you guys as well. I always enjoy talking to you, and take care.
You got it, man. Our pleasure. Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys, presented by DC Creasman Jewelers.